Hello, Simon Miller here with another episode of Miller's Musings. And if you're wondering why this went up on a Tuesday rather than a Monday, it's because I went to Chicago this weekend and I needed Monday to recover because I was up for 48 hours traveling home with time zones and all that nonsense and I wanted to sleep, not gonna lie. So my voice is a bit hoarse, did a lot of interviewing. And as a quick pimp, you can check all that on What Culture Wrestling as and when it goes up. But we're not here to pimp, we're not here to promote. We're here to talk about life, anxiety, depression, good things, bad things, and just, the shape of the world. To be completely honest, I wanted to do something a bit different today because it's a question that I get asked a lot, not only in my general life, but on my videos and on Twitter and blah, 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 blah. And we've touched on positivity before. It's kind of one of the reasons I started these videos. But a lot of people specifically say to me, Simon, how do you stay so positive? And in another way, they say, why do you stay so positive as well? That's more of a negative spin to it, but I certainly know what they're getting at. And the weird thing, it ties in with confidence as well. To me, positivity and confidence are not light switches that you just turn on. They are, what's the word I'm looking for? But they are not walks of life, that's not the right thing to say. But they are ideals, and they are ideas that you implant in your brain, and then you take whatever steps you need to get there. So for example, if you feel like you're being too negative and you'd like a more positive outlook on life, the first thing you do is you plant that seed in your stomach and you start saying to yourself, I want to be more positive. So let's say you start this journey and then the next day you get some bad news. Not major bad news because some things are going to hit you directly. Let's say you had a job, you're a freelancer, and someone said they were going to pay you £200 and they get back to you and say, I'm really sorry, we can only pay you £120. Maybe that these are really small things, but maybe that £200, you needed that money for something very specific and you planned a trip or a journey or whatever, and it gives you a bit of a knock. And again, I'm dealing with very simple things here, but I don't want to get into too crazy stuff because that's a whole different kettle of fish. But there are two ways, this is my basic point, there are two ways to respond to that. You can either go, oh, I've just lost £80, or you can spin it and you can say to yourself, well, at least I'm still getting £120, at least I still got that work. If I do a good job for this company, maybe they'll hire me again, and long term, it will be worthwhile. Now, you may not actually think that deep down. Deep down, you may be annoyed, pissed off, feel like, somebody screwed you over a little bit. But if you tell yourself that you're going to be positive and you're going to keep being positive, and even when you feel those things, you're going to accept it, shrug your shoulders, and let the feeling pass, right? There's nothing wrong with having negative emotions whatsoever. But in this kind of scenario, if you're happy just to go, and move on with it, eventually that will become your natural state. And then just because you will be a more positive person. And that goes into confidence as well, which we've absolutely talked about on this series before. It's the cheesiest saying ever, but fake it till you make it. And that ties for a lot of things, because if you start planting those seeds where you say, I'm going to be a more confident person, you go out to a party or your job or wherever, and you make sure that you act confident, even if deep inside you're really shy and introverted and it's a real struggle, eventually you're going to break down that wall and you will find yourself being a more confident person. And when you find yourself doing that, you may even learn a bit more about yourself and the things you need to do for that to be your default state. And I think that's the same with positivity as well. If you just approach things in a positive way, a lot of people say, right, if you approach stuff in a positive way, positive things will happen to you. And I believe the reason is that true is that actually the same things are happening to you, but because you're appreciating things more and because you're going out there with more of a happy attitude, that's not the best term in the world, but it will do, that maybe you're actually starting to smell the roses or notice the wood through the cheese, things that you wouldn't have done before. And that's why, you start to feel like things have picked up because you've created the environment where things feel like, it's going to pick up. And I always think it's important when we're talking about positivity to also then shift on to negativity as well, because as we just said, being negative or being upset is not bad. And if you believe it's bad, or you believe it's a negative if negativity is a negative place to get into, when you arrive there, because we all do, and I'll talk about my own experiences in a minute, or at least broadly, you'll struggle once you get there, and once you start struggling, that opens other doors, and it takes you down paths that you won't necessarily, want to go down. And that's perfectly normal. We all do that. Misery loves company, and it's we got lost in our own emotions. But if you accept that, okay, something bad has happened to me, it has made me feel this way. Maybe it's going to take a few days, weeks, months, maybe a year to get past it. You're going to feel better about that, and that's kind of why I try and approach things really positively. I guess a lot of you watching this may have seen, the major part of my positivity coming through the wrestling videos I do. I mentioned What Culture at the start of the video, and I wanted to use that as an example because, to me, wrestling is great. I love wrestling. It's one of my biggest passions in the world. I've been watching it for 25 plus years. But really, in the grand scheme of things, when we're talking about life, wrestling does not matter. Wrestling is there to distract you from your problems. Wrestling is there to entertain you. And that's why I don't really, again, you do whatever you want to do, whatever makes you happy or gets you through the day, I respect and good, more power to you. But I am never going to put myself in a position where I'm watching something that is meant to be fun and is meant to be something that speaks to me on a fun level. That's the stupidest sentence ever. Imagine you wrote that in an essay. I'm never going to let that, get me down. There's nothing wrong with criticism and there's nothing with critiquing things, but I'm always going to do it on this level as opposed to, this level down here where you get lost in it and you're mad and you're raging. And I totally understand the culture of, I thought this was crap and this one was, I think that's crap too. That's great having that conversation. That dialogue can be the difference between a good and bad date, but I just think you need to make it stop there, or at least that's what I do. So let's say WWE does something absolutely atrocious on Raw and I'm going, that was awful and I hate watching it. I'll find a way to get some fun out of it because I'm like, hey, I'm watching dudes and dudettes, that's not a word unless you live in 1987 California, fight in their underwear. I can't take this too seriously because if I do, I feel like I'm not using it for the reason that it exists. And I don't think that's a path it's personally not a path I ever want to go. I want to go down. And so I thought I would take that and I'd apply it to, I've been doing it before. Always had that attitude towards life. But it was just something that always made sense to me because crap is going to happen to everybody. And it sucks. And absolutely sometimes you're going to be like, why me? That's a question that we always ask. Why me? Why is this happening to me? Why am I walking out in a rain cloud? Because you're going through a bad time. When you are going through a bad time, it depends who you're talking to. Social media is a problem to an extent in the sense that no one, portrays themselves badly on social media. Some people use it for attention, which again, I completely respect and understand. But no one is going to paint a really awful picture. A few people do, but by and large, social media is there to present your best side. And if you are going through a bad time, that's going to make it even worse. But this is why I always say this, but that's why it's so important to know that no matter how you are feeling, you are not the first person in history to feel this way, and you're not the last. Unless you feel that way, and as soon as you feel that way, an asteroid hits the world and we all die. But that is a negative, pessimistic outlook. And that kind of understanding and acceptance will make you feel more positive. Because if you could tell me, oh, Simon, I'm really upset about my money situation, I can turn back to you and go, oh, dude, me too, I understand it. All of a sudden you'll be like, oh, I've shared this feeling, and now I know that other people are getting through it, other people are experiencing it, and hopefully that will give you a positive boost. And from there, you can grab onto it because there's nothing wrong with something good happening to you and thinking, yes, awesome, and then using that idea to get you through to the next positive thing. Because no one starts that way. You teach yourself to be like that. And if you believe something and you put that idea in your head and your heart, your gut, your soul, you will get there because you're telling your body to get there. It's like anything. It's how marathon runners or anyone that's sort of involved in sports, it all starts with the mental game. It all starts in your head because your body kind of just takes care of itself in many ways, but your brain is a bit more complicated and your brain doesn't mean to attack you, that's not the right word, but it can go off the rails. And when it goes off the rails, that's when you have to take control. That's when you have to make sure that you're there. Say, right, how am I gonna handle this situation? Because you've got to respond to life. You cannot control life. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll finish this video and I get some really bad news. And yeah, use my shoulder, right? If you're watching these videos or anything I do, I've got a really bad shoulder injury at the moment. I went to Chicago for this wrestling event. I wanted to try and do more with it because my physio was going well. And I did too much. And now it hurts. And I have to rest it again. And probably, I've got a doctor's appointment this week. It could result in surgery, which means I'm out for 6 months. Which is the whole reason I tried to rehab it in the first place, because I didn't want to go through 6 months of doing nothing. I'm a very active person. And yeah, I have struggled on certain days over the last 8 weeks, whatever it's been now. Jeez, it has, crazy. Because I want to go to the gym, and I want to go wrestle, and I want to do all these things that I can't, and I'm not very good at just sitting around at home. However, if I need to have surgery, if that's my lot right now, it seems like an even greater waste of time to spend my days being upset that even more days are going to be wasted because of my surgery. And that, it just happens. I wanted to be an active dude, and unfortunately, one of the risks of being an active person is you can get injured. So you can look at it and go, okay, well, would I go back and not do any of that stuff? Absolutely not. I would do it all again and just hope this time it doesn't happen. And so sometimes you just have to roll with the punches. And there's a reason why these stereotypical cliches exist, and that's because if you actually implement them into your life and embrace them, you will actually come out the other side feeling a little bit better about it than you would otherwise. So my advice for this video would simply be, if you want to be a more positive person from this moment on, as soon as you finish watching, just respond to everything positively, even if it's only an internal thing. So the next thing that comes along and makes you go, "Ugh," find that positive spin. And if you don't think, even if you don't think it, just go with it anyway. Keep telling yourself, no, I think this, I think this, I think this. And in the coming, again, days, weeks, months, whatever, you'll start to see it becomes more of a norm as opposed to something you need to try and make happen. We've got over 10 minutes. I'm gonna draw a close to it there. As always, if you are really struggling, and please do go seek professional medical help, be that your GP or a counsellor or the Samaritans or one of these many hotlines that exist. Whatever you have to do to get better, make sure you do it. Remember that you're just as I don't want to say that. I don't want to say you're just as important as everybody else. That sounds disparaging. Everybody is important, and really, as I've always said, in your own world, you're the most important thing because you're the centre of it. There's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, all that nonsense. And I will see you, I said a week's time, should be next Monday. Let's say die. I'm not going to die. Why did I say that? Why I said that? What a negative way to end a positive video. That's it soon.